what is the first thing you want to know?
Josh, I want to know what was something that you unlearned in recent years that improved the quality of your life?
This is a good question. This is a tricky question. I really had to think about it because it required me. What I think is interesting about this question, and probably good for everyone to think about, is the first part was I had to kind of think, well, what are things that I had previously learned or believed? And then think about what do I maybe no longer believe or have unlearned, or sort of my thoughts on that have shifted. So I'm going to give you some of my answer, and then I'm going to throw it back to you to find out like why you were curious to know that. So I'll put you on the spot in a moment. But what I thought about, or what first came to mind, was for a long time, my answer is going to apply to both my life and my business. I think for a long time, I saw things as very black and white. I was very sure in what I believed was right or wrong, what I believed was the sort of smart way to do something or the dumb way to do something. I was very concrete in the kind of person I was. Oh, I'm the kind of person that does that. I'm not the kind of person that does that. Everything there wasn't any gray area, right? The world, business, my own life, my own decisions, everything seemed very sort of crystal clear to me. And I think for a long time, that really helped me. Like, I think that was actually a very good thing. From a very young age, I sort of knew or believed I knew who I was, what I wanted. It gave me a lot of confidence, I think, in all sorts of things, in my own abilities, in the decisions I made, in the people I surrounded myself with, all of that stuff. It was almost like I had the answers to everything, right? So anything that would come my way or any decisions, I could be like, all right, well, it's either, again, black or white, yes or no. Like, okay, this is clear. And I think for a lot of things, in many ways, I didn't exactly understand why other people seem to struggle so much with life or business. I was like, what do you mean you don't know what you want to do or you're unsure? Like, I was very certain. And again, there were a lot of benefits to that. What I found, and I'd say this evolved over the past decade, maybe 5 to 10 years, something like that, is, that approach is great until you start to realize you're wrong about some stuff. So all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but gradually as you get older and you have more experiences and you see more stuff, and some of those decisions and some of those certainties, you start to realize, well, wait a second, like I thought if you do X, Y, and Z, that this happens, but that's not what happened. And I thought that, this person that I thought was crazy for doing it that way, maybe they weren't so crazy. And you start to realize that, or at least I started to realize things are much more complicated than they may seem, or may have seemed to a younger version of me. So I've definitely shifted from sort of that black and white to now I see it's almost polar opposites. And that's to what I've unlearned. I now see almost everything as shades of gray. I understand it's funny. One of the things I say to clients and creators all the time when we're talking about how to figure out what they want to do, and I'm consulting with them, is a lot of times one of the first things I'll say is like, look, we're not trying to there's no one right path. There's infinite paths and infinite ways you can succeed and get what you want. So it's not about finding the right path, because I think people get paralyzed looking for that. It's about picking a path and then figuring out how to make it right. That, if you think about it in the context of this, suggests gray area. It doesn't suggest there's a right way and a wrong way. It's black and white, right? You need to do it this way. And that, I think, is very representative of the shift that I've gone through. Also there's a great book I read by Annie Duke, and I am going to butcher the name of it because I don't remember. But it is, hold on, I'm actually going to look it up. It's weird to give a book recommendation and not actually recommend the name of the book. Okay, so the book is called Thinking in Bets. And Annie Duke is a professional poker player. It's not about poker, but it's really about decision making. And, a lot of that book is about understanding that like people tend to judge their decisions based on the outcome. And just because the outcome either turns out good or bad doesn't mean it was a good or bad decision. Those things are completely separate. So that has influenced this. And again, that's something that leads to this sort of gray area versus right, strict right or wrong. The benefits of, I think, now that I've sort of come out on the other side and shifted my perspective, or to use your term, unlearn some of this, is I think it has made me much more patient, both with myself and with others, much less frustrated, because when you see things black and white, it was very frustrating for me, for people that I didn't understand how people couldn't see things the way I saw them. I was like, oh, it's so clear. How are you not getting this? Or, whatever. So much less frustrated. And I also think it's removed a lot of pressure around decisions and things like that. Because if you really feel like there's a definitive right or wrong answer or choice, inevitably you're going to put a lot of pressure on yourself to make that right decision, right? To not screw it up. When you understand that, that things are gray, it relieves a lot of that pressure. And then finally, I think it's helped me see more perspectives, understand other people's perspectives better, and see how things can be complicated. And I think that those things, that piece of it has actually made me a better marketer, a better writer. That ability to sort of understand the subtleties and the complexities of things is really helpful in terms of any kind of communications, especially selling and the communicating of ideas. So that's a little rambly, but that's what I would say I have unlearned. So before we go to the next question, I am going to throw it back at you. And I'm just curious, why was that one of the questions that you wanted to ask?
So first of all, I just want to add one point, and I liked one thing that you said, that because it really resonates with me in a positively painfully way, if possible. I'm exactly the same. I used to know exactly what I wanted to do all the time. I'm the next step. And as you say, it can be hard when you're talking to others, for me, clients or students, and they don't know what to do next. And I was like, well, how can you know? And I think it's, as you say, it's really humbling to actually appreciate that gray area. And as you say, explore as well. I love that. And it goes back to the reason why I chose this question. So first of all, that I shall not take credit is an excellent question that one of my guests on our podcast at Wall Marketing School asked me, JJ. Shout out to JJ Reston. And I love this so much. I was like, I'm going to write this thing down because I think I'm going to ask her again in the future. And I just loved it because it shifts perspective, talking about shifts of perspective that you just mentioned. And it kind of makes you think about, we always think about the things that we learned or that we improved, the things that we added. But sometimes the way in our mindset, or I love that you mentioned even experimenting in our strategy, that we can shift and try, can teach us so much as learning something new, doing something new, adding something. Sometimes removing it or changing it can actually, as you say, also improve the quality of our life. Again, stress, frustration, it can happen so often.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I really loved it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm glad you mentioned that because it fits right in line with the way I think about a lot of things, like the removal of stuff being as important, and a lot of times even more so than the adding of stuff, right? I'm always looking to simplify, to clarify, to remove things. This podcast is an example of that. Let me just we're going to do 3 questions. We're going to talk about them for, a few minutes, and that's going to be it, as opposed to a lot of stuff that's sort of overdone.